So being that Computex is one of the biggest electronics shows for the industry of the year, maybe next to CES, I wanted to talk about some of the trends that we saw being set at Computex for 2016. And these are all, they're fairly global, but we'll be talking about video cards, motherboards, VR, and cases for this trend-setting discussion. Before getting to that, all this coverage for today is brought to you by Rosewell and their new Cullinan case. So first of all, global trends for the year. RGB LEDs are everywhere. They're getting a little bit ridiculous. I don't know how much they increase cost of some of these components, but we saw RGB LEDs in motherboards, in cases, in RAM, in fans, in video cards, in peripherals, and everything else that we looked at. So RGB LEDs are all over the place. I guess that's a good thing if you like LEDs. Otherwise, you can get 5-color LEDs because that seems to be the alternative. The cheaper variant is where even in VGAs, HB Bridge, for instance, or in some of the fans out there, the cheaper alternative seems to be single-color LEDs or 5-color LEDs that just alternate and don't have full RGB 18 million color range. So that's what we got for the main global trend. Now, next, of course, we'll talk about some of the way the video cards and the cases that bleed out from this. So the cases all have LED backlights. They all have some form of LED strips inside for the most part until you get into the sub $150 range. And then there's the 5-color LED versions. So there are only a few cases we saw this year without any LEDs at all. It seems to be pretty uncommon at this point. Other than LEDs, the cases do all still have PSU shrouds at the low end, and that's basically every case from 60 and up to 150 or so. Power supply shrouds still very big this year, 5-color LEDs, as I said, and then tempered glass has become huge. So Rosewell's got it in their cases, Inwin, Leon Lee, and Leon Lee especially actually has a lot of tempered glass. Silverstone's looking into it, so that's everywhere now. It's that thick paneling that basically it's just a large sheet of actual glass rather than acrylic or clear plastic or plexiglass. So tempered glass is becoming large. VGA trends, so again, RGB LEDs. Once you get past the LEDs, it seems that one of the big trends is way more VRM phases than actually necessary. And this is especially true because we were only looking at the NVIDIA cards because AMD only just announced the card and therefore had no AIB models present. So speaking to NVIDIA, there are way more VRM phases than necessary. A lot of the cards are 14 plus 3-phase. I'm getting attacked by some kind of local bug. And a lot of them were also monstrous. So Zotac has a card that's I don't know why it's as big as it is, but it is, and it's probably getting them attention. So that's huge. Gigabyte has a giant card, the Extreme Gaming card, and that's the main trend for the video cards was LEDs, more VRM phases than necessary, and being large. So now moving on to motherboards. Same thing, RGB LEDs everywhere. If not RGB, then single color. The armor has gotten big, so Asus kind of started this trend with their Sabertooth series and their Tough line of motherboards. That has continued and now propagated into all of the brands, including stuff from MSI and EVGAs have been doing it for a bit. Gigabyte's doing it. So even if they don't call it armor, it's basically just shielding everywhere. It doesn't necessarily have a functional purpose, but it does just look kind of different, I guess. That's the main reason that's there. Kind of wrap things up. So everyone's got VR. They're all dumping tons of money into it. There's going to be a ton of failures in VR because that's the nature of any emergent industry, and literally every company that's involved in graphics, in motherboards, a lot of them are dumping money into VR. In the very least, they're all getting these VR premium badges and certifications that may mean nothing in some instances, so that seems to be a bit more overhyped than maybe it should be because at the very least, it's just throwing VR onto a product name for the sake of saying it's a VR. So I don't know that I like that trend, but that is one that's here. VR backpacks are here. Asus and MSI have 2 VR backpacks. Intel did a mock-up previously, so those seem to be on the way. And then stupid VR demos with stupid VR peripherals are also here. So we saw a lot of things like rowing machines with the VR headsets attached, and a fishing pole to hang onto the cabling. That was a bit interesting. We've seen wingsuit contraptions. There was one demo on the show floor where a dude was just kind of in a harness like you might see for climbing or base jumping or something, hanging from a harness looking down at the show floor, had the mask on his head, and the demo was just, I think, skydiving or something like that. So I guess it's kind of an exploration of what VR can do. That's something that less than 1% of users will ever have in their home. Maybe it's a location-based entertainment thing at arcades, or maybe it's just to do demos that are more than the usual square room demos that we've seen everywhere. So that's another thing, is just unnecessary peripherals thrown in with VR, especially the rowing machine, which is massive and takes up a lot of room. So that's the trends for Computex 2016. Some neat stuff, some kind of pointless stuff, tons of lights though. That seems to be the theme here for the year. All the architectures are shipping at this point, including Broadwell E, Polaris, and Pascal, and Vega's around the corner. So that's a pretty big year overall, but definitely some silly things as with every trade show. Thank you for watching. Patreon link in the post-show video. I'll see you all next time.